right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I am Jessica Cordero from Insightful Accountant and your host for today. Now, before we actually start, as you guys know, I like to go ahead and ask our question of the day. God, I cannot speak today. Okay, so Christine, yeah. So my question of the day is just as it's kind of a basic question, but I like asking this question mainly because it's different for everybody. So, um, it is, what was the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
That I needed like way more time to prepare for that one
I
because
should have
I've
asked
had
you
some,
before we started.
yeah, I've had some really good ones. Oh man, this one's going to be so accounting specific, but I
Yeah.
always remember this one the most. So this is like, ooh, vulnerable moment for me. When I first got out of college, the CPA firm that I was working for, I was hired at the same time as probably like three or four other people. So we were all like working and taking the CPA exam at the same time. And a couple of my colleagues just kept passing the exams like so easily. One of them was a medalist and one of them like just really like flying colors, and I
Yeah.
was really struggling to get through all of the sections. I failed a couple of them, and had to retake them. And I remember the partner saying to me at one point in time, he's like, you know what, years from now, like when you have experience and you have your license and like this part is done and over with, nobody's ever going to ask you how many times you took the test. And I guess you could kind of like spread that out to some other areas of life and business as well. Like I think that we get a little short-sighted with the details sometimes that we get frustrated with, but really at the end of the day, if you're doing a good job, nobody's going to ask you, how many tries it took you to get there.
It's the
So
results, right?
yeah, it is. It
You
is.
know, I just wanted to share just because like you
And now I'm
mentioned
gonna
an
have to send
exam.
him this recording too and say,
Because you meant like,
Denny, you're
hey,
famous
there
like
was a
20
shout
years
out.
later.
Like I just had a really funny story to share just because you mentioned an exam. Fun fact, I'm actually a licensed financial advisor here. And
Nice.
I don't do it anymore just because I really I wanted to focus on marketing, which is my degree. And um at the time my boyfriend and I both decided to both get the license, right? So both studied really hard on it. Like he didn't. He does not, like, he hates studying. And I did because like I'm probably really type A.
I'm the studier. Yep.
Yeah. And you know how in exams they seat you next to each other when you come in, but you have like different sets.
Yep.
So we had different sets. We were supposed to have different sets, but like someone came in like in between us. So we technically had the same test. So this man decided to copy off of me for a few questions because I was like, "Why are you copying off of me?" And he was like, "No, because I did not study. You know that." I was like, "Oh my, okay, fine." And come the test, like after the test, like the results come in, and he passed. I didn't.
Stop it.
I know. I was like, I can't really ask them to do a recount because they're gonna find out what exactly what
Uh,
happened. So I had to take the test again, like a year
yeah.
after.
Those exams, I would not take those again, but done and over with. So here we are.
Yeah, just had to share that. So, anyway, going back, good afternoon again, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Again, I'm Jessica Cordero from Insightful Accountant and your host for today. Now, in today's Tax Talks, we'll be talking about apps for efficiently managing receivables with the wonderful Christine Gervais. I will hand this off to Christine in just a little bit after I cover a few of the housekeeping items. Now, as you know, there is no CPE for this as it is just a 30-minute webinar. If you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A panel and remember to be specific. Don't just say what you mean. You got to ask, hey, Jessica, what you mean by you failed your test and your boyfriend passed? Mainly is, we might not get to your questions right after you put it in there. I'll be sending you a copy of the slide deck and a link to the recording after the webinar. And it's also going to be up on our YouTube page within about 24 hours. So if you want to go check that out over there, along with many other webinars that we've done in the past that might be of interest to you, I'll be putting that link to our YouTube channel into our chat as well. And also, do not forget that we have many recurring webinars for you every month, whether you're interested in practice management, marketing, everything tax, like this one, or all things QuickBooks, Insightful Accountants got something for you. You can check out all of our webinars that are available to you over on our educational webinars page right on our site. And do not worry, I'll be putting that link into our chat as well. And if you have not subscribed to our newsletter, join the tens of thousands of accounting professionals who rely on Insightful Accountant to keep them up to date with the news and updates impacting today's accounting professional. I'll be rolling out all of those links for you guys and the copy of the slide deck throughout the webinar in case you might have missed it the first time. So watch out for that in the chat. And Christine, that is it for me. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. All right, give me just 1 minute. We will get this slide deck up and running. Let's see. All right. And then let me just get the Q&A and the chat box open. And as always, I will try to do my best to keep an eye on these throughout the session. So if you do have a question, feel free to pop it into the chat box or into the Q&A box, and I will do my best to get those answered all as quickly as possible. And yes, today is apps for efficiently managing your receivables. I threw in some practice management content as well in terms of invoicing and billing that we'll go through to hopefully have you have a productive day when you leave here. If you're not currently subscribed, please feel free to scan the QR code really quickly. That way you get all of the reminders for the amazing content and webinars that Cheska was talking about. Those will come to your inbox and you won't miss out. For those of you who might be brand new, my name is Christine Gervais. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. I am the co-founder of Cultivate Consulting. We are a fully remote CPA practice out of Southern Maine, actually. And in that fully remote life, I have kind of dabbled in a lot of different technologies to help our practice continue to grow. I do consider us a small firm. And so a lot of my content is centered around those smaller to medium sized practices or even solo practitioners trying to help you figure out how do you do more with less, which is what today is focused on, how to drive some profitability and less administrative time in your invoicing and receivables process. So, with that, let's just jump right in. One of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this is just from my own experience, because as our practice has continued to grow and grow and grow, my partner and I were finding ourselves spending more and more time on the billing process. And also, this has been my experience in working with other firms as well, that there's a lot to be desired in the billing process and cycle if you're not actually looking at that as ways to gain efficiency in your practice. And I think the reason that we skip over this a lot of times is because we're highly focused on finding efficiencies, finding productivity, finding automation in the work that we do for our clients, forgetting that we need to find those admin efficiencies for our practice as well. So, um, I was finding us spending an inordinate amount of time on tracking time, creating invoices, sending invoices, following up on invoices, doing collections, sending a lot of manual communications to clients throughout the month. And we've thankfully never had a huge receivables issue, but it's also because we were spending a lot of time on it. So you have to think about that's lost productivity. We're not working on client activity. Or it's the cost of an admin to be doing this for you. You're losing out on your outstanding receivables not being part of your cash flow. And when your billing cycle, I worked for a practice at one point in time where they tracked their time, and then on average, it took them about 30 days to get that tracked time into an invoice and sent to the client. So by the time the client was invoiced, it was almost at the 60-day mark already. And then from when the work had been done, and then the client has another 30 days to pay. So in that billing cycle, it was really like a 90-day, almost 90-day turnaround time from the point that the work had been completed to the point where you're receiving payment from clients in some cases, which is an excessively long period of time when you start looking at cash flow. So all of these things are contributing to the success and growth of your practice, and looking at ways to shorten your billing cycle, have you spend less time on administrative activities is kind of the goal of this conversation, especially because if you are smaller practices or solopreneurs, then you are people who are doing all of this admin work for yourself. And every minute that you're spending doing admin is time that you're not able to bill your clients. And just as a quick aside, I do see that Cheska just put up the PDF of the slide deck in the chat. So if you wanted a second to grab that, go ahead and download that PDF. If you don't see it or you don't want to take a minute to grab it right now, we will send it out afterwards. But I like to just make sure that you have that for the session if you would like. So again, we want to talk about this for cash flow reasons. You don't want to be spending a ton of your time on collections. You actually don't want to be spending any time on collections. Ideally, we get into a place where you're sending invoices and you're being paid, and we're not having to have so much follow up time with clients to try to actually get that cash in the door. You don't want to be spending a ton of time on creating invoices. And so we want to figure out, how do we make that more of an automated process, less of an administrative, time consuming manual process, because you're eating up time. And the other thing that I have found, especially in small practices, we're a small practice. My business partner is also my husband. So we're kind of, two peas in a pod. Where I go, he goes. What if we want to be on vacation the last day of the month or the first day of the month? We have to stop in the middle of our vacation to make sure that we're doing manual invoicing processes. So all of these things are just, reasons why we want to look at streamlining this process and improving that collection speed, and helps to improve your cash flow. And it also helps to identify accounts receivable faster. So what I did here, and I will tell you, full disclaimer, we do not use all of the technology that I'm going to present on today. We use some of it. But I did go out and do some digging and do some research to figure out what are some of the more cost effective technologies and apps that are out there to help make this process easier, faster, more automated, that would be a good fit for practices that look very similar to ours. So some of the key things that I found, and I read a bunch of different reviews, a bunch of different articles, surveys, things that were done to see what the actual feedback was on some of these. So QBO is still top for almost every list in terms of automating invoices, that it does a better job with more complex invoicing. And so things that we've seen between us and our clients is that you can invoice for multiple products and services a little bit more easily. It does have a sales tax feature if one of your clients had something like that that needed to be included. Um, so, and it does allow for automation. And I'm going to talk in a minute about what you can actually change in your billing process or procedure itself to lend your whole process a little bit better to automated billing. So we'll put that on the back burner for a minute, but just know that QBO is still kind of top of the list in terms of automating invoices. And so instead of doing that manual invoice creation on the first of every month, looking for software that's going to generate that for you. Do have a quick question. The handout is the slides. So if you go right into the webinar chat, the handout for the session is that PDF of the slide deck. And if you don't see it, don't worry, because we will send it out to you afterwards. So FreshBooks, actually, this one surprised me a little bit. I don't know if there's anybody here that uses FreshBooks and likes it, or if you have clients that are using FreshBooks. Most accountants that I know kind of tend to shy away from this one. It doesn't have strong balance sheet capabilities, so it tends to not be like the top bookkeeping selection. But FreshBooks does offer you the opportunity to track billable hours, and it was known for making the process of tracking open invoices a little bit easier. So in terms of like invoice has been sent but not paid, to be able to keep those top of mind, to see them faster, to track them easier, that's important. Because if we kind of let that outstanding AR go on too long, the longer it goes, the less likely you are to collect. And that is part of that cash flow tracking process, that we don't want to be sending manual communications to clients left and right about open invoices. So Callbox I thought was really an interesting app that you can take a look at. It identifies outstanding receivables for you, and you can actually select for them to start the collections process. So if you are maybe doing more billing or have a longer billing cycle and you're not necessarily collecting in a short 30-day window, and you are finding yourself in a situation where you are having to reach out and do collections on some of your receivables, and it's just not something that you want to do. I personally hate that. There's nothing in the world I would rather do less than have to like collect on an outstanding debt with somebody that, usually that relationship isn't great anymore if they haven't paid you. Um, not necessarily our fault, but sometimes that's just how it goes. And so having an app where you can kind of just send that right into a collections process is something to think about if that's a fit for you. Chaser was cool. This one automates payment reminders and escalates past due accounts to your attention. So, again, it's just kind of an automated feature that helps to bring those outstanding AR to balances to your attention faster. I think anything that automates the payment reminders is absolutely critical because if you're in that space where you're manually sending invoices, you are also most likely in that space where you are manually following up on all of those invoices. Hey, Joey, you haven't paid your invoice. This is past due. This has 15 more days, things like that. Um, and that's time consuming because, every 10 to 15 days, you have to sit down and you have to go through what's open, what's been paid, who do we need to send reminders to. And if you start adding up those hours throughout the month, you're talking, I'm willing to bet, about several $1,000s at least of missed opportunity in terms of work and profit margin going to your administrative time. So, Bill.com, many of you are probably familiar with. You might have clients that use it. You are probably more familiar with it on the AR side or AP side, excuse me, in terms of tracking receipts and doing bill pay. But Bill.com also has auto charge and auto pay features if you would like to invoice your clients using their system. So, I really like auto charge and auto pay. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute when we talk about like the broader things that you can build into your entire receivables process to help improve your invoice and your collections procedures. But auto charge and auto pay, I think, are super critical. Most people expect it at this point in time. A lot of people are paying things electronically. We're not seeing checks and things as much as we used to. And so, just kind of building this expectation into your practice is a really great way to improve your billing cycle and improve your cash flow. And having a software that automates all of that for you, you can kind of set it and forget it, is going to also reduce your administrative time. Funbox is another really interesting one if you want to take a look at this. So, Funbox is an opportunity to actually receive credit on your receivables if that's something that you're interested in doing. So, the way that they work is they actually will extend you a certain line of credit based off your receivables balance as long as you are invoicing and billing through them. So, if that's something that is potentially attractive to your business, it can certainly be difficult in a service-based business to get lines of credit because typically the banks are looking for collateral, and usually our receivables are our only collateral. So if you want to kind of skip some of the hoop jumping from the bank side of things and look into that, Fundbox is something that would potentially offer that as a service for you. So those are some interesting ones that you can think about in terms of building into your systems. Bonus apps for you to think about. So these are mostly payment processing apps. And the reason that I think it's really important to talk about these in this process is more than saving administrative time, the payment processing fees can be astronomical. They can definitely eat into your gross profit margin if you're not working with the right payment processor. So I will just go out and say that there's some popular payment processors out there that a lot of people use that we won't name any names, but they're definitely not the cheapest. So if you're taking electronic payments from your clients and you're using, maybe it's a bigger, more popular name, and you haven't looked out there recently to see what other options there are, you might want to just consider shopping your payment processor to see if you can find some savings in terms of your payment processing fees. So interesting things about these guys. Stripe will actually process with Bitcoin. Whether or not you want to be paid in Bitcoin, I think is irrelevant, but it allows your clients to pay with their Bitcoin. And then that would translate to dollars into the bank account for you. But I think that that's an interesting feature that they would allow your clients to pay that way. CPA charge. I really like CPA charge. I think their fees are super reasonable. Hopefully, they don't watch this and raise their fees on us, but they do a fantastic job. And they offer your clients a pay over time feature. So, again, that's not something that necessarily affects you or your cash flow. It's just a matter of convenience for your clients. So, the fact that that's there, that if they're having difficulty in their own cash flow, if they're having difficulty, paying their bills or they get behind 1 month. And that's always the reason somebody doesn't pay us, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to have the money until 3 more weeks. But offering that pay as you go feature is something that might help speed up your cash flow and improve your receivables time, your turnover. Authorize.net accepts Apple Pay. So I'm finding this to be more and more popular as well. More and more people are asking about things like Apple Pay, PayPal. So that is a payment processor that will accept Apple Pay from your clients. And then I have to be honest, I have no idea how this one is pronounced, if it's Helsum or Helseem, or Heelseam, but this one is actually a dual US Canadian company. They boast top tier security and they offer recurring payment transactions, meaning you, again, can kind of set it and forget it. So we're going to talk about security again in a minute, but I think it's really important to know who are the payment processors that are known for their data security, because we are talking about putting in clients' credit cards, bank information, etc. when we start getting into how are they actually paying you. So these are some interesting payment processors that you can take a look at. All of them have fairly reasonable fees. So I've just touched on this, things that you want to look for and be really careful about with your payment processor choices. Security should be front and center. This is incredibly important. Basically, as accountants, we're collecting people's bank account information, credit card information, social security information. All of that information is essentially the same thing that is protected by HIPAA. We have extremely stringent data security requirements for the amount of information that we're taking from our clients. So you want to make sure that whoever you're working with, especially because you're going to be giving them your clients' bank information, credit card information, etc., you want to look at what is their data security? How does it work? You want to look at the agreement that they have with you for your service. Who is liable in the event that there is a data breach? You want to make sure that you know the answers to all those questions before you're going to choose a payment processor. Definitely look at their fee structure. Like I said, I think there's some more popular payment processors out there who are definitely not the cheapest. And so definitely take the time to see who's more competitive. We cut our payment processing fees almost in half last year by doing that process and taking the time to do some research, figure out who's going to be the best fit, met our security requirements, and also it's going to have a better fee structure than what we were paying before. There's some things you can do with that with your client behavior too. Like typically payment processing fees are cheaper on ACH versus certain types of credit cards. So if you want to modify your client behavior, that's a good way to consider things as well. Is if you want to incentivize your clients to pay you via ACH and things like that. Fraud prevention, you want to look at, what is company history on fraud prevention? Have they had any data breaches? What's their customer service like if you have an issue with the payment? What's the client interface like? What does your customer, your client see in terms of how easy is it for them to pay you? And then any type of automation features, automated recurring payments, automated recurring invoices, anything that you can automate is going to help reduce that manual labor time that you are spending dealing with your receivables process. So those are kind of the core things that you want to look at in a payment processor and an invoice app software that you're considering using. Um, Also, just to that end as well, and I think this is probably our next slide, our AR management tips, things that you actually want to build into your process that are going to lend themselves to you being able to take better advantage of some of the automation and capabilities, tech capabilities that come from these software and apps. I highly, highly recommend, if you are still doing hourly billing, that you stop. Highly recommend it. We've done a couple of other webinars and written some great articles on getting away from hourly billing. So you could go out to the Insightful Accountant website and you can search the articles, or go to our YouTube channel and search through some of our YouTube videos for things like value based pricing or flat fee models, and just kind of see some of the content on that, how to transition away from hourly billing. Hourly billing is always going to give you the most headache in terms of administrative responsibility to create invoices, because you are going to have to manually spend time creating invoices when they do not look the same every single month. If you're able to transition into more of a flat fee or a value based pricing model, that's where you can get into a space where you can offer to your clients, I'm going to provide you XYZ services for a flat fee of Y dollars per month. And then you can start generating recurring invoices without having to manually create them, automated payments from your clients. And that is going to significantly reduce your admin time and improve your cash flow. That AR turnover cycle is going to get shorter, and that is the goal. So I already mentioned this: incentivize your clients to use ACHs when possible. Um, and then securely retain credit card information. So this is something that you can look at specifically with those payment processors, is that how is the credit card information being retained by your clients? Are you retaining it? Are they retaining it? Again, what is their their security protocols around that? And then automate your reminders, automate late fees. So you want to look at that as well when you're considering any of these applications, is which one is going to allow you to automate reminders. So you send an invoice, client hasn't paid it yet. How often are they going to get a reminder until it's paid that you don't have to manually send? As well as automate the late fees. So if somebody has 30 days to pay, it's been 30 days, they haven't paid you, can your system automatically tack on that late fee and resend out that bill for you? Some of them can and some of them can't. And then you want to also update your engagement letters to make sure that you are addressing all of these things with your clients. So, again, this is something that we spent a lot of time on to try to incentivize the behavior that we actually wanted to see from our clients. So, we made it clear you only have 30 days to pay. And after that, we're going to consider it late. We're going to charge you X% in interest for any month that you're past 30 days due. We require you to have an auto pay form on file. We are going to require that that auto pay form be used for any recurring charges. Um, those are the types of things that you want to start making your clients aware of. If you want to consider giving them a small break in their fees, like we'll give you a 2% discount for using ACH, on your auto pay as opposed to a credit card, that might be something that's worth your while. If you're paying 3.5% in credit card processing fees, you get a little bit of a boost there to incentivize that behavior. So, at the end of the day, the best way to make sure that you're getting the most out of this process is to have that combination of automation built into your application process, as well as making sure that from a firm process management standpoint, you are addressing these things and setting good expectations with your clients for sure. So I'm going to pause there because we only have about 60 seconds left, and just ask if there's any questions that you have that we haven't addressed. Again, just one more time, if you are looking for the slide deck so that you can kind of go back and do your own research on any of these softwares or applications that we talked about, or any of the payment processors, the slide deck is up in the chat. So go ahead and grab that. And we will also make sure that we send the slides out to all of you afterwards so that you can do your due diligence on each one of those and figure out who might be a good fit for you. All right. And then if you have any questions that you think of after today, or you're going through, the process of making some changes, and you have any questions that you want to shoot over to me, feel free, grab my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you, Cheska. Just put up the slide deck one more time for you. So go ahead and grab that. And also, if you're looking for the link back to Tax Practice News or Insightful Accountant, our YouTube videos, any of those things, the QR code is right at the beginning of the slide deck. So that was the first QR code that I put up for you, where it said subscribe now, and that will get you out to our site.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And thanks so much, Christine. I also put the links to our YouTube channel and the webinars and the newsletters into our chat. So you guys can grab it from there too if you wanted to, like right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. And Christine, thanks so much for that, and everyone for taking time out of your day to hang out with us. And right before we close out the webinar, remember that we have a variety of webinars for you every month, and you can check them out right on our site. And also, don't forget to check out and subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channel so you don't miss out on news and updates that impact today's accounting professional. Thanks for today, everybody, and we will see you in the next Tax Talks. Bye.
Have a good one.